Daughter, aren't the $4,000 a month enough for you? My father's voice echoed in the sterile hospital room. I stared at him, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I had no idea what he was talking about. I thought he was joking. But the look in his eyes told me this was no joke. I forced out a nervous laugh. Dad, I managed with my savings and my freelance work. His face went pale, then red. Just at that moment, my husband Derek and my mother-in-law Gloria walked through the door. Their arms were full of shopping bags from expensive boutiques. I never could have imagined what was about to happen next. The fluorescent hospital lights buzzed overhead. Maya opened her eyes slowly, the fog of exhaustion still clinging to her. The first thing she noticed was the dull ache in her lower body, a reminder of the 12 hours of labor she had just endured. But that pain faded the moment she turned her head. There, in a simple plastic bassinet beside her bed, lay her son, tiny, perfect. His little fists were clenched, and his face was scrunched up in that adorable newborn way. Tears streamed down Maya's cheeks as she reached out to touch his soft skin. Everything she had been through, every sleepless night, every moment of exhaustion, it was all worth it. She adjusted the thin blanket over her shoulders and looked around the room. It was a shared room in a county hospital. 3 other beds lined the walls, though only one other was occupied by a woman sleeping quietly in the corner. The walls were a faded green, and the ceiling fans squeaked with every rotation. But Maya didn't care. It was clean, and it was what they could afford. She looked at her baby again. He was wrapped in a second-hand blanket she had found at a thrift store 2 months ago, light yellow with little ducks on it. She had washed it 3 times before she was satisfied it was clean enough for her son. When she showed it to Gloria, her mother-in-law had laughed. "A used blanket, Maya. Really? That's disgusting. You're too cheap. What kind of mother wraps her baby in someone else's garbage?" Maya had swallowed the insult like she always did. What else could she do? Derek never defended her. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at the floor. "Mom's just old-fashioned," he would say later. "She doesn't mean anything by it." But she did mean it. Gloria always meant it. Maya had married Derek 3 years ago against her father's wishes. Richard Callahan was a successful businessman who owned a chain of construction companies across the state. He had wanted better for his only daughter. But Maya had fallen in love with Derek, a mid-level accountant at a small firm. She believed in him. She believed in their future together. She was wrong. Looking back, Maya could see the signs she had missed. The way Derek always handed his paycheck to his mother to manage the family finances. The way Gloria controlled every dollar, every decision. The way Maya was given a small allowance that barely covered groceries, let alone anything else. When she got pregnant, things got harder. Derek's salary wasn't enough, or so Gloria claimed. Maya was given just enough money to buy the bare essentials. She wanted to buy good prenatal vitamins, the ones her doctor recommended. Gloria had scoffed. "Those fancy vitamins? What a waste. I never took vitamins when I was pregnant with Derek, and he turned out fine. Get the free ones from the clinic." Maya had tried to argue, but Derek just shrugged. "Mom knows best, honey. She raised me, didn't she?" So Maya did what she had to do. She started working. Even though she was pregnant, she took on freelance graphic design jobs late into the night. Her back ached. Her eyes burned. Her belly grew heavier with each passing week. But she saved every penny she earned. She didn't spend it on herself. No new clothes, no fancy food, no indulgences. Every cent went toward her baby. The blanket, the onesies, the diapers she had stocked up on during sales. She was proud of herself for being resourceful, for not being a burden. But she was exhausted. Maya's thoughts were interrupted by the door creaking open. A nurse walked in with a warm smile. "Mrs. Walker, you're awake. How are you feeling? Ready to try feeding the baby?" "I'm okay, thank you. A little sore but happy." Maya's voice was hoarse from exhaustion. "Your son is beautiful. 7 pounds, 8 ounces. Perfectly healthy." The nurse checked Maya's IV and adjusted her pillow. "You did great, Mrs. Walker. I saw in your file that you handled all the admission paperwork yourself. You're very independent." Maya smiled weakly. She had been forced to be. Just as the nurse was about to leave, the door opened again. This time, Maya's heart stopped. Standing in the doorway was a tall man in an expensive navy suit. His silver hair was slicked back, and his presence filled the room like a wave of authority. "Dad," Maya whispered. It was Richard Callahan, her father. They hadn't spoken much in the past 3 years, not since she married Derek. Her father had been hurt by her choice, and she had been too proud to admit she might have made a mistake. Their relationship had cooled to occasional texts and awkward holiday calls. But here he was, in person, unannounced. "Dad, how did you know I was here?" Maya tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. "I'm still your father, Maya." Richard's deep voice was gruff, but his eyes softened as he looked toward the bassinet. His assistant stood behind him, holding an enormous gift basket filled with baby items. "I came to meet my grandson." Richard walked slowly toward the bassinet. He peered down at the tiny sleeping baby, and for a moment, his hardened businessman's face melted into something almost tender. "A boy," he murmured. "Yes, Dad, your grandson." Maya felt a swell of pride despite everything. But then Richard's expression changed. His eyes scanned the room. The chipped paint on the walls, the squeaky ceiling fan, the simple plastic bassinet, and then his gaze landed on the second-hand blanket wrapped around his grandson. "Maya," his voice was flat, "you're in a room like this." "It's a shared room, Dad. It's clean. It's what we can afford." Maya felt her stomach tighten. "And this blanket," he reached out and touched the fabric, his face twisting. "Where did you get this?" I bought it at a thrift store, Dad. It's good quality. I washed it." Richard was silent, his jaw clenched. He looked at his daughter, lying in a hospital bed in a room meant for people with no options, her baby wrapped in someone else's discarded blanket. Something dark flickered in his eyes. "Maya," he said slowly, "I came here expecting to find you in a private suite. I thought you would be giving my grandson the best." "Dad, Richard held up his hand. "But what do I see? A shared room, cheap supplies, and you look." He paused, taking in her pale face, her dark circles. Her thin frame. "You look exhausted, worn out. Maya, what is going on?" Maya's heart began to race. She didn't know what to say. And then Richard asked the question that would change everything. "Daughter, aren't the $4,000 a month I've been sending you enough?" The world stopped. Maya felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. "What?" She let out a shaky laugh. $4,000? Dad, what are you talking about?" Richard's face hardened. "I never joke about money, Maya. For 3 years, on the first of every month, I have transferred $4,000 to your household. I sent it to Derek's account because I trusted him to take care of you. I wanted you to live comfortably without having to ask." Maya's blood ran cold. Her hands began to tremble. $4,000 every month for 3 years. "Yes," Richard's voice was like steel. "That's $144,000, Maya, so I'll ask you again. Was it not enough?" Maya shook her head violently. "Dad, I never saw that money, not a single dollar. I paid for everything myself. The baby's supplies, my doctor visits, everything. I worked as a freelancer because we had no money, because Gloria said." She stopped, her throat closed up. Just then the door swung open again, and there they were, Derek and Gloria. Their arms were loaded with shopping bags. Designer logos peeked out from expensive paper bags. Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Coach. Gloria was laughing. "Derek, you spoil me too much, but that red purse was just calling my name." They stepped into the room and froze. Derek's face went white the moment he saw Richard standing there. The shopping bags nearly slipped from his hands. The silence was deafening. Gloria recovered first. She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Callahan, what a surprise. You should have told us you were coming. We would have prepared something special." Richard didn't move. He didn't blink. His gaze was fixed on the shopping bags, then on Derek's sweating face, and then back to his daughter lying in the hospital bed. "Derek," Richard's voice was low and dangerous. "Where is the money I sent you?" Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. He looked at his mother for help. What money, Mr. Callahan? Gloria's voice was sickeningly sweet. I'm afraid I don't understand. Don't play games with me. Richard took a step forward. For 3 years, I transferred $4,000 every month to Derek's bank account. That's $144,000 meant for my daughter's well-being. But she tells me she never saw a dime. Meanwhile, you two walk in here carrying thousands of dollars in luxury goods. Gloria's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly, putting a hand on her chest in mock surprise. Mr. Callahan, you must be mistaken. We have no idea what you're talking about. In fact, we've been struggling. Your daughter is quite the spender, you know, always wanting expensive things. Her pregnancy cravings were ridiculous. We could barely keep up. Maya's head snapped toward her mother-in-law. That's a lie. I never asked for anything expensive. I ate whatever you cooked, even when there wasn't enough. I wore the same 3 maternity outfits for 9 months. I bought everything for this baby with money I earned myself. See, Gloria pointed at Maya with a manicured finger. This is what she does. She plays the victim. She cries and makes herself look pitiful. Don't fall for it, Mr. Callahan. Your daughter is a manipulator. Maya felt like she had been slapped. She looked at Derek, begging him silently to say something, to defend her, to tell the truth. But Derek just stood there, trembling, his eyes fixed on the floor. Richard reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. I'm not here to play games, he said calmly. I track every dollar that leaves my accounts, every single one. He dialed a number. Yes, this is Richard Callahan. I need a complete statement of all transfers made to the account under Derek Walker's name for the past 3 years. Every deposit, every expense. Send it to my phone immediately. He hung up and looked at Derek with a gaze that could freeze fire. You have about 2 minutes to tell me the truth before I get that report, and I suggest you don't waste those 2 minutes lying to me. Derek's knees buckled. He looked like he might faint. Gloria, for the first time, seemed genuinely afraid. Maya's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. All those years, all that suffering, all those late nights working until her back screamed in pain. All those times she went hungry because there wasn't enough money. All those moments she felt guilty for wanting basic things like vitamins or comfortable clothes. It had all been a lie. Ping, Richard's phone chimed. An email had arrived. He opened it, his face expressionless as he scrolled through the document. But his eyes told a different story. They grew darker with every line he read. Derek, Richard said finally. His voice was eerily calm. Shall I read some highlights? Derek began to cry, actually cry, tears streaming down his face. Dad, please, please, I can explain. It was my mother's idea. She made me do it. I love Maya. I never wanted. Last month, Richard interrupted, ignoring Derek completely. $4,000 deposited on the 1st. On the 3rd, a $2,800 charge at a luxury jewelry store. On the 5th, $1,500 at a spa resort. On the 7th, a designer handbag purchase for $900. He looked up. Meanwhile, my daughter was eating instant noodles and working until 3 a.m. to pay for her own prenatal vitamins. Gloria's face twisted with rage. So what? It's Derek's money. You put it in his account, not hers. That means it belongs to him. And what a son does for his mother is none of your business. What a son does with money meant for his pregnant wife. Richard's voice rose for the first time. While she's starving, while my grandson is wrapped in a second-hand blanket, you call that a son's duty. She's fine, look at her. She's dramatic, always playing the martyr. If she really needed money, she could have asked. But no, she wanted to look pitiful so she could run back to Daddy. Maya had heard enough. Mother-in-law, she said, her voice shaking but firm. When I was 7 months pregnant, I asked Derek for $25 to buy the vitamins my doctor prescribed. You said we couldn't afford it. You said doctors just want to scam people. That same week, I saw you wearing a new gold bracelet. Gloria's face flushed red. When I was 8 months pregnant, Maya continued, I worked until 4 a.m. every night to finish a design project. I was so tired I could barely see straight. The baby kicked constantly. I could barely eat. And Derek, he went to sleep. Not once did he offer to help. Not once did he ask if I was okay. Derek tried to reach for Maya's hand. Sweetheart, please, let me explain, it's not what you think. Maya pulled her hand away like she had been burned. Don't touch me. Maya, please. Don't touch me. The room fell silent. Even the squeaky ceiling fan seemed to pause. Gloria's face cycled through a dozen emotions. Shock, anger, fear, and then something Maya hadn't expected, defiance. Fine, Gloria suddenly shouted. Yes, we used the money, so what? Is that a crime? Derek is my son. A good son takes care of his mother. That's how it should be. That's how it's always been. If you wanted the money so badly, you should have fought for it. But no, you were too weak, too pathetic, too busy playing the suffering wife. Richard's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Mrs. Walker, I suggest you stop talking. Why? Because you're rich, because you think you can bully us. Gloria stepped forward, her fear now replaced by reckless anger. I was against this marriage from the beginning. I told Derek, don't marry a rich man's daughter. They're spoiled. They're useless. They expect to be served. And I was right. Maya felt each word like a knife. We thought marrying into wealth would make life easier, Gloria continued, her voice rising. But your daughter, she pretended to be poor, wore rags, cooked cheap food, made us look bad in front of the neighbors. My friends would ask, Gloria, why does your daughter-in-law look like she can't afford clothes? I was humiliated. So when you started sending that money, I told Derek, this is compensation. This is payment for putting up with her. Mother-in-law, Maya's voice cracked. I wore old clothes because I had no money. I cooked cheap food because that's all I could afford. I wasn't trying to embarrass you. I was just trying to survive. Survive? Gloria laughed bitterly. Drama queen. You worked those little freelance jobs because you wanted to feel important, not because you needed the money. And now you're crying to your daddy like a little girl. That's enough. Richard's voice cut through the room like a blade. He pulled out his phone again and dialed a number. The room fell silent. Hello, James. Prepare my legal team immediately. He paused, his eyes never leaving Derek and Gloria. File a divorce petition on behalf of my daughter, Maya Callahan, full custody of the child, and prepare a civil lawsuit for embezzlement and fraud. I want complete seizure of all assets purchased with the misappropriated funds. Another pause. Yes, the car and the house, everything. I want it done today. Derek's legs gave out. He literally collapsed to his knees. Dad, please, please don't do this. I'll pay it back. I'll work 3 jobs. I'll do anything. Just please, please don't send me to jail. Maya watched her husband, the man she had loved, the man she had defended against her own father, the man she had trusted with her future. He was on his knees, sobbing, begging, but not for her forgiveness, not for their marriage. He was begging to stay out of prison. Derek, Maya's voice was hollow. Look at me. Derek raised his tear-streaked face. I'm going to ask you one question, just one, and I want you to answer honestly. Derek nodded frantically. 3 months ago, when I was 8 months pregnant and working all night to finish a project for a client. You saw me, didn't you? You saw me sitting at the kitchen table at 3 a.m., barely able to keep my eyes open, my back aching, the baby kicking so hard I couldn't breathe. Derek swallowed. And you knew, Maya continued, her voice steady now. You knew there was over $100,000 sitting in your bank account, money my father sent for me, for us, for our baby. Derek's lower lip trembled. You knew I was suffering, and you did nothing. You said nothing. You just went back to bed. A long, painful silence. Answer me, Derek. Derek's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, I knew. Something inside Maya shattered. But from the pieces, something new began to form, something harder, stronger. She had spent 3 years blaming herself, feeling guilty for not having enough, feeling like a burden, but she wasn't the problem. She had never been the problem. Maya turned to her father. Her eyes were dry now. Her voice was calm. Dad, I want out. Get me and my son out of here, now. Richard nodded once. Consider it done. Gloria exploded. You ungrateful witch, after everything we did for you, this is how you repay us, by taking everything. Everything you did for me? Maya let out a laugh that held no humor. You starved me. You humiliated me. You stole money meant for my health and my baby's well-being. And now you stand there acting like the victim. You'll regret this, Zola, Gloria screamed. You think you can survive without Derek? Who's going to want a divorced woman with a baby? You'll come crawling back to us, begging for forgiveness. Maya shook her head slowly. No, Gloria, I won't. I crawled for 3 years. I'm done crawling. The next hour was a blur. 2 security guards arrived to escort Derek and Gloria out of the room. Derek kept crying, kept begging, but his words meant nothing anymore. Gloria screamed threats until she was physically removed from the floor. Maya was transferred to a private suite on the top floor. The room was enormous, soft lighting, a comfortable bed that actually supported her aching body, a proper crib for her son with soft blankets and new baby supplies. A nurse helped her settle in. Mrs. Callahan, is there anything else you need? Maya looked at her son sleeping peacefully in his new crib. No, thank you. I have everything I need now. That night, alone in the quiet room, Maya finally allowed herself to cry. Not tears of sadness, tears of release, tears she had been holding back for years. She cried for the woman she used to be. She cried for the suffering she had endured in silence. She cried for the love she had wasted on people who never deserved it. And when the tears finally stopped, she felt lighter than she had in years. The next morning, her phone buzzed with message after message, all from Derek. Maya, please pick up. I'm sorry, I was wrong. It was all my mother's fault. She manipulated me. Please give me another chance, for our son. Maya, I love you. Please. Maya read each message with a blank expression. Then she held down the power button and turned off the phone. There was no us anymore. 2 weeks later, Maya sat in her father's office. The divorce papers were spread out on the desk between them. Her lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, had outlined everything. The divorce petition has been filed, Patricia said. Full custody of your son has been requested. Given the evidence of financial abuse and neglect during your pregnancy, we're confident the court will rule in your favor. And the assets? Richard asked. The car Derek purchased with Maya's money has been seized. The house renovation that Gloria funded with the misappropriated funds is being evaluated. We've also filed a civil suit for the full $144,000 plus interest. They've been given the option to cooperate or face criminal charges. Maya took a deep breath. Did they cooperate? Patricia nodded grimly. They had no choice. Derek signed everything yesterday. The house, the car, acknowledgement of the debt. Gloria threw a fit, but in the end, she signed too. They're both currently unemployed. Derek was terminated from his company immediately after Mr. Callahan made a single phone call. Maya felt a pang of something. Not sympathy, not guilt, just emptiness. She had loved Derek once. She had trusted him, and now he had nothing. But that wasn't her fault. He had made his choices, and choices have consequences. What happens to them now? Maya asked quietly. That's not your concern anymore, Richard said firmly. They dug their own grave. Let them lie in it. Maya nodded. She signed the final document, her hand steady. It was over. But really, it was just beginning. 3 months passed. Maya moved into a beautiful apartment her father had arranged. It wasn't as lavish as the penthouse he had originally offered, but Maya had insisted on something modest. Something she could eventually afford on her own. Dad, I don't want to be dependent on you forever, she had told him. I want to build something myself, for me and for my son. Richard had looked at her with something like pride. Then tell me what you need. Maya had thought about it for days. During all those late nights working while pregnant, she had dreamed about the kind of business she would start if she ever had the chance. And now she had that chance. I want to start a clothing line, she told her father. Modest fashion for young mothers, comfortable, elegant clothes that don't cost a fortune, and a line of baby products too, premium quality but accessible prices. I know what it feels like to not have enough. I want to create something for women like me. Richard listened carefully. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair. Write me a business plan, detailed. Production costs, marketing strategy, projected profits. If it's viable, I'll give you a loan, not a gift. A loan, you'll pay me back with interest. Maya's heart soared. This was exactly what she wanted, not charity, an opportunity. Deal. She threw herself into the work. She designed during nap time and made calls during feeding time. Her college friend Tanya, who had an MBA and was looking for a new challenge, agreed to come on board as her business partner. "You're crazy, Maya," Tanya had laughed during their first meeting. "Starting a business with a newborn, you're going to drive yourself insane." Maya smiled. "I've already been through insane. This is just hard work. I can handle hard work." And she could. Night after night, she refined her designs. She researched suppliers. She built her brand identity. She created a website. She connected with other young mothers online, asking them what they wanted, what they needed, what was missing in the market. The response was overwhelming. Women were hungry for exactly what Maya was offering. Clothes that were stylish but modest, comfortable but flattering. Baby products that were safe and beautiful but didn't cost a month's salary. "Grace Collection," Maya announced to Tanya one evening. "That's what I want to call it, because every mother deserves to feel graceful, no matter what she's going through." Tanya grinned. "I love it." Richard reviewed Maya's business plan. He asked tough questions. He poked holes in her projections. He challenged her assumptions. And when he was finally satisfied, he transferred the startup capital into her business account. "Don't disappoint me," he said, but there was a twinkle in his eye. "I won't, Dad." And she didn't. Meanwhile, across town, Derek and Gloria's world had completely collapsed. The beautiful house was gone, seized and sold. The luxury car had been repossessed. All the designer bags Gloria had hoarded were sold at a fraction of their value just to pay for food and rent. They now lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. The walls were thin. The pipes leaked. The smell of detergent and mildew permeated everything. Derek had tried to find work, but his reputation was destroyed. Every company he applied to somehow knew about his history. Richard Callahan's reach was long. No one wanted to hire a man who had embezzled money from his own wife. Eventually, Derek found work as a delivery driver for a local restaurant. The pay was minimum wage. The hours were long. His back ached from carrying heavy bags up and down apartment stairs. Gloria, who had once bragged about her son's success at every social gathering, now avoided going outside. The neighbors whispered about them. The friends who had once admired her designer bags now looked at her with pity or scorn. One evening, Derek came home exhausted. His clothes were stained with grease. His shoes were falling apart. He collapsed onto the lumpy mattress that served as their bed. $65, he muttered, throwing a handful of wrinkled bills onto the table. "That's what I made today." Gloria stared at the money. Once, $65 wouldn't have covered the coffee she ordered at her favorite cafe. Now it was supposed to feed them for a week. "This is all her fault," Gloria hissed. "That witch Maya. If she had just stayed quiet, if she hadn't run to her daddy, we would still have everything." Derek didn't respond. He was too tired to fight. But somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered the truth. This wasn't Maya's fault. It was his. He had stolen from his wife. He had watched her suffer and done nothing. He had chosen his mother's greed over his wife's well-being. This was karma, and karma was just getting started. 8 months after Maya's son was born, something unexpected happened. Derek received a call from an old friend who owned a small accounting firm. The friend offered him a job, nothing fancy, just basic bookkeeping work, but it was a lifeline. Derek threw himself into the work, desperate to climb back up. But old habits die hard. Within 3 months, he had skimmed $3,000 from the company's accounts, thinking no one would notice. He was wrong. The police arrested him at his desk on a Tuesday afternoon. The charges were embezzlement and fraud. This time, there was no rich father-in-law to negotiate with, no expensive lawyers to find loopholes. Derek was sentenced to 18 months in prison. When Gloria heard the news, something inside her broke. Her son, her golden boy, was going to jail. She had no one left. No money, no home, no pride. She started wandering the neighborhood, muttering to herself. Neighbors saw her digging through garbage cans for recyclables to sell. One evening, she was caught trying to steal clothes from a laundromat. The owner called the police. The woman who had once mocked Maya for buying a second-hand blanket was now wearing clothes she had pulled from a dumpster. Maya heard about all of this through mutual acquaintances. She didn't feel joy. She didn't feel satisfaction. She just felt free. Their downfall wasn't her doing. She hadn't wished harm on them. She had simply walked away and built her own life. Their destruction was entirely self-inflicted. And Maya was soaring. Grace Collection launched to incredible success. The website crashed twice on launch day from overwhelming traffic. Orders poured in from across the country. Mothers shared photos of themselves wearing Maya's designs, tagging her on social media, writing heartfelt messages about how the clothes made them feel beautiful again. Within 6 months, Grace Collection opened its first physical store, a small boutique in a trendy shopping district. The opening day was packed with customers. Local news covered the event. "What are you doing here?" My voice was ice. "Jenna, please, I need to talk to you." "We have nothing to talk about." I started to close the door, but she stuck her foot in the gap. Desperate, pathetic. "It's about Derek. There's something you need to know, something important." I hesitated. Every instinct told me to slam the door in her face, to never speak to this woman again. But something in her voice, this raw, broken quality, made me pause. "You have 2 minutes." I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. No way was I letting her into my house. Not now, not ever again. Vanessa wrung her hands together, looking everywhere but at me. "I know you hate me. You should hate me. What I did was unforgivable." "Is that what you came to tell me? Because I already know that." "No, I came to warn you." She finally met my eyes. "Derek's planning something bad." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "The money, your savings, the house. He's trying to hide everything before the divorce goes through. He's been moving assets for weeks, maybe months. I don't know how deep it goes, but I overheard him on the phone with someone, a lawyer, I think, talking about offshore accounts and shell companies and making sure you got nothing." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "That's impossible. I already moved half our savings into my own account. I've been watching the finances." "Not all of them. Derek has accounts you don't know about, business accounts, investment portfolios, stuff he set up years ago and never told you." She swallowed hard. "He showed me once. Bragged about it, actually. Said you'd never find it if things ever went south." My heart was pounding now. "Why are you telling me this?" Vanessa laughed bitterly. "Because he screwed me over too. After everything blew up, I thought, God, I don't know what I thought, that he'd leave you and we'd be together. Stupid, right? But instead, he ghosted me. Completely. Said I was a liability now, that I'd ruined his life, that he never wanted to see me again." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I gave up everything for him, Jenna. My marriage, my reputation, my home. And he threw me away like garbage the second I wasn't useful anymore." I should have felt sorry for her. Some small part of me did, maybe. But mostly, I just felt cold. "So this is revenge," I said flatly. "You're not warning me because you care. You're warning me because you want to hurt him." She didn't deny it. "Does it matter? The information is real. He's going to take everything from you if you don't act fast." I thought about my kids, about the house they'd grown up in, about the future I was trying to build for them. Derek had already taken so much. I couldn't let him take more. "Tell me everything," I said. We sat on the porch for an hour. Vanessa told me about the hidden accounts, the business deals Derek had kept secret, the money he'd been siphoning away for years. She gave me names, account numbers, everything she could remember from the times Derek had bragged to her about his safety net. By the time she left, my head was spinning, but I had a plan. The next morning, I called my divorce lawyer and told her everything. She was skeptical at first. Hearsay from the affair partner wasn't exactly reliable evidence. but she agreed to dig deeper. And what she found made my blood boil. Derek had over $400,000 hidden in various accounts. Money I never knew existed. Money that should have been ours, mine, and the kids. Money he'd been squirreling away while I clipped coupons and worried about grocery bills. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was where some of that money came from. See, Derek worked as an accountant for a mid-sized manufacturing company. Had for 15 years. Good job, decent salary, nothing fancy. But according to the documents my lawyer uncovered, Derek had been embezzling from his employer for at least 3 years. Small amounts at first, a few thousand here and there, but it added up. By our estimate, he'd stolen close to $200,000 from the company. I felt sick. Not just because of the crime, though that was horrifying enough, but because if this came out, it wouldn't just destroy Derek. It could destroy me and the kids, too. Frozen assets, legal battles, the possibility that everything we owned could be seized as part of the investigation. I had to act fast. My lawyer and I came up with a strategy. We would approach Derek's employer directly before Derek knew we'd discovered anything. We would present the evidence and offer to cooperate fully. In exchange, we'd ask them to pursue Derek, and only Derek, while protecting the assets that were rightfully mine and the children's. It was a gamble, a huge one. But it worked. The company's legal team reviewed the evidence and agreed to our terms. They wanted Derek, not me. They understood I was an innocent party, a wife who'd been kept in the dark about her husband's crimes. 2 days later, Derek was arrested at his motel room. I wasn't there to see it, but I heard about it from Claire, who heard about it from someone who knew someone at the police department. Apparently, Derek cried, actually broke down sobbing as they put the handcuffs on him. Good. The news spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Derek Palmer, upstanding accountant and family man, arrested for embezzlement. People were shocked, horrified, and suddenly the sympathy I'd been receiving doubled. "I can't believe you were married to that man," Mrs. Chen said, shaking her head. "You poor thing, but you're strong, Jenna. You'll get through this." Jennifer from the PTA started a meal train for my family. Tom came over and helped me winterize the lawn because Derek had always handled that, and now. Well, now Derek was sitting in a jail cell awaiting trial. The divorce proceedings moved quickly after that. With Derek facing criminal charges, he had no leverage, no power, no ability to fight for anything. I got the house. I got full custody of the kids. I got the legitimate savings and investments, the ones that weren't connected to his crimes. And Derek got 5 to 7 years in federal prison. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated, but mostly I just felt tired, so incredibly tired. The months that followed were hard, harder than I expected. Explaining to Lily and Mason why Daddy wasn't just gone but in jail, navigating their confusion and anger and sadness, trying to rebuild a life that felt completely foreign now. But slowly, things started to get better. Lily joined the soccer team and discovered she was actually pretty good. Mason made best friends with a kid named Oliver who lived 3 blocks over. Biscuit learned a new trick, rolling over on command, which delighted the kids endlessly. And me, I went back to school. I'd always wanted to be a nurse, had dreamed about it since I was a little girl. But then I met Derek, and we got married young, and the kids came, and somehow my dreams got pushed aside. Forgotten. Not anymore. I enrolled in nursing school at the local community college. It was hard, brutal actually, juggling classes and clinicals with being a single mom. But I loved it. Every anatomy lesson, every patient interaction, every exhausted night studying for exams. I was finally doing something for myself. Claire helped with the kids when she could. The neighborhood moms stepped up too, trading babysitting duties and helping with school pickups. I'd never felt so supported in my life. And then there was Greg. It started small. He'd come over to help with things around the house, fixing a squeaky door, cleaning out the gutters, stuff like that. I'd make him dinner as a thank you. The kids adored him. Lily thought he was hilarious. Mason liked that Greg taught him how to throw a football properly. At first, it was just friendship. Just two people who'd been through the same trauma, helping each other heal. But somewhere along the way, it became more. I don't know exactly when I fell in love with him. Maybe it was the night he stayed up until 2 a.m. helping me study for my hardest exam. Maybe it was the afternoon he took the kids to the park so I could have 2 hours of peace to just breathe. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, like I was strong and beautiful and worthy, when I still felt so broken. But I did fall in love with him, completely. And he fell in love with me too. We took things slow, so slow. Neither of us wanted to rush into anything. We'd both been burned badly, and we weren't about to make the same mistakes again. But about a year after everything went down, Greg asked me on a proper date. Dinner at a nice restaurant downtown. Candlelight and everything. I know this might seem weird, he said nervously, fiddling with his napkin. Given how we met, given everything that happened. But Jenna, you're the best thing in my life right now. You and those kids, and I don't want to just be your neighbor anymore. I want to be more. I smiled. My heart felt so full it might burst. I want that too, I said. He grinned, this big, goofy, beautiful grin, and reached across the table to hold my hand. And you know what? It felt right, completely, perfectly right. We dated for a year before he proposed. Nothing fancy, just a quiet evening at home after the kids were in bed. He got down on one knee in my living room, the same living room where I'd once cried myself to sleep, and asked me to marry him. I said yes, before he even finished the question. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. Claire was my maid of honor. Lily was a flower girl, and Mason was the ring bearer. Mrs. Chen cried through the whole ceremony. Jennifer from the PTA took approximately 9,000 photos. And when Greg said, "I do," I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, lasting, unshakable hope. The years that followed were good, better than good. Greg officially adopted Lily and Mason, and they started calling him Dad. Not because I asked them to, they just did it one day, naturally, like it was always meant to be. We had a baby together, a little boy named Leo. He had Greg's kind eyes and my stubborn streak, and his older siblings adored him from the moment he was born. I finished nursing school and got a job at the hospital downtown. It was everything I'd dreamed of, helping people, making a difference, finally having something that was truly mine. Greg's construction business took off, and we were able to buy a bigger house, still in the same neighborhood, because the kids didn't want to leave their friends. Mrs. Chen was thrilled. She said she couldn't imagine the street without us. And Vanessa, I never saw her again. I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved to Florida and started over. A new name, a new life. I hoped she found peace. Not because she deserved it, but because holding on to anger is exhausting, and I had better things to do with my energy. As for Derek, he served his time. 5 years in federal prison. When he got out, he tried to contact the kids, wrote letters, called a few times. Lily wanted nothing to do with him. She was 15 by then, old enough to understand exactly what he'd done and how much pain he'd caused. She told me she wasn't ready to forgive him. Maybe someday, maybe never. Mason was more conflicted. He barely remembered Derek at this point. Greg was the only real father figure he'd ever known. But there was still this curiosity there, this need to understand where he came from. We let him meet Derek once, with a therapist present. It was awkward and sad and didn't really resolve anything. But Mason said he was glad he'd done it, said it helped him close a chapter. And that's all any of us were trying to do, really. Close chapters, move forward, build something better from the wreckage. One evening, about 2 years after the wedding, I was sitting on our back porch watching the sun set. Leo was asleep in my arms. Lily was inside doing homework. Mason and Greg were in the yard, tossing a football around and laughing. Greg caught my eye and smiled. That same big, goofy grin from our first date, the one that made my heart skip. I smiled back. And I thought about everything, the betrayal, the pain, The moment I looked through that dusty window and watched my world collapse. The cold satisfaction of locking that door and making that call. I thought about how far I'd come since then, how much I'd grown, how something so devastating had somehow led me here, to this beautiful life I never could have imagined. They say everything happens for a reason. I used to think that was just something people said to make themselves feel better about bad situations. But now I wasn't so sure. Because if Derek hadn't cheated, I never would have found my strength. If Vanessa hadn't betrayed me, I never would have discovered who my real friends were. If everything hadn't fallen apart, I never would have had the chance to rebuild it. Better, stronger, realer than before. I pressed a kiss to Leo's forehead and breathed in that perfect baby smell. Greg jogged over and plopped down beside me, slightly out of breath. "You okay? You look lost in thought." "Just thinking about how lucky I am." He raised an eyebrow. "Lucky, after everything you've been through." "Because of everything I've been through." I leaned my head on his shoulder. "It brought me here, to you, to this, and I wouldn't trade it for anything." He kissed the top of my head. "I love you, Jenna." "I love you too." Mason ran over, football in hand. "Dad, Mom, want to see how far I can throw now? I've been practicing." Greg grinned. "Show us what you got, buddy." I watched my husband and my son play in the fatting light, my baby sleeping peacefully in my arms, my daughter's music drifting through the open window. And I felt it, this overwhelming sense of gratitude, for second chances, for new beginnings, for the life I'd never expected but couldn't imagine living without. Biscuit, old and gray now but still full of love, wandered over and rested his head on my knee. I scratched behind his ears. "We made it, boy," I whispered. "We really made it." That night, after the kids were in bed and the house was quiet, Greg and I sat on the couch together. Just talking, just being. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" he asked. "If you hadn't locked that door, if you hadn't called me." I thought about it, really thought about it. "Sometimes," I admitted. But then I remember that I did lock the door. I did make the call. And everything that happened after, good and bad, led us here. So I try not to dwell on the what-ifs." He nodded slowly. "You're pretty amazing, you know that." I laughed. "I don't know about amazing. Stubborn, maybe, slightly unhinged when pushed to my limit, but amazing." "Amazing," he repeated firmly. "The most amazing woman I've ever known." He kissed me then, soft and sweet, and I melted into him like I always did. We stayed up late that night, talking and laughing and dreaming about the future. More kids, maybe. A vacation to Europe someday. Growing old together on that same back porch, watching grandchildren play in the yard. A future I never thought I'd have. A future I'd earned. When I finally fell asleep that night, I was smiling. Because here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. It gives you a foundation to build on. And what I built from the ashes of my old life was stronger, more beautiful, and more authentically mine than anything I'd had before. Derek tried to destroy me. Vanessa tried to take everything I had. And for a moment, just a moment, I thought they'd succeeded. But they didn't. They didn't break me. They made me. And now, every single day, I wake up next to a man who loves me unconditionally. I raise children who are kind and strong and resilient. I do work that matters. I live a life that's full of purpose and joy and love. Not despite what happened. Because of it. So if you're going through something similar, if your world is falling apart and you can't see a way forward, I want you to know something. You will survive this. You will come out stronger. And one day, you'll look back and realize that the worst thing that ever happened to you was actually the beginning of the best chapter of your life. I know, because I lived it. And now, 10 years later, I can say with complete honesty that I'm happier than I've ever been. My family is everything to me. My life is full in ways I never imagined. And every night, before I fall asleep, I say a silent thank you. To myself, for being brave enough to lock that door. To Greg, for loving me through the chaos. To my kids, for giving me a reason to keep going. And yes, even to Derek and Vanessa, because without their betrayal, I never would have found my way here. To this moment, to this life, to this love. And we all lived happily ever after. With big smiles. The end. I hope this story met your expectations. Would you like me to adjust anything? The packing, emotional beats, or add any specific details? Let me know if you'd like revisions or a completely new story.